And let us now move to the next speaker of the day. We bring to you Dr. Mohammad Mujahidul Islam, Executive Director, Marketing and Sales, SKF Pharmaceuticals, Bangladesh. He's a medical doctor turned pharma marketeer with a mission to help patients in finding better treatment, cure, and quality of life. Currently holds the position of Executive Director, Sales and Marketing, working for a number of years for SKF Pharmaceuticals, one of the top tier companies in pharma industry in Bangladesh. In progressive marketing career, he has played lead role in building many power brands, executed many successful business projects in different therapeutic segments, and led the company's phenomenal business growth journey in the industry and ensured company's profit and loss. Let me tell you about SKF. It is an organization of 6,500 plus professionals, and it is the successor of former SKNF USA, having global footprint in 54 countries. Over to you, Dr. Mujahidul.
Thank you, Dr. Swati. So, good afternoon, everyone. At the very beginning, I want to thank PharmaState Academy, Chief Mentor Vivek sir, Dr. Swati, and everyone for organizing this wonderful and time-demanding Pharma Summit. And also, I'm thankful for inviting me to speak on a particular topic. And I think this is a very time-demanding initiative, a Pharma Brand Summit on patient-centric marketing. And I'm extremely humbled and privileged to get the learning experience from today's keynote speaker from Canada. And also, I look forward to learning from the industry stalwarts and leaders from South and Southeast Asian pharma industry. So with this note, let me share my presentation. So I am actually from Bangladesh. It's a small but beautiful country. In terms of population, it is the 8th largest country in the world. And this 2021, we are celebrating 50 years of independence of Bangladesh. The country, Bangladesh, it is one of the fastest growing economies in the world today. Pre-COVID, Bangladesh had consistent 8% year-on-year GDP growth. Even in the last year, COVID year, the GDP growth was 5%. And even Asian Development, they are projecting in 2021 also, they are projecting 6% plus GDP growth for Bangladesh. So the main, if I talk about export, the main industry that is dominating today is ready-made garments. Bangladesh is the second largest ready-made garment exporter in the world today. And pharma is also coming up. We have many pharma companies, which all the leading companies, they are exporting to more than 100 countries across the globe. Most of the leading countries have accreditations, prestigious accreditations from the stringent regulators of the world. And also we have collaboration with many MNCs from different corners of the world. So I believe pharma is also another industry that has a tremendous prospect for Bangladesh. Today, in terms of our domestic medicine needs, we are almost self-sufficient, but we believe after meeting the domestic needs, we have a tremendous opportunity to explore the global market as well. I am from SKF Pharmaceuticals. It is one of the most ethically acclaimed and top-tier pharma companies in Bangladesh. We are a generic pharmaceutical company. We are engaged in manufacturing and marketing of pharmaceutical finished products and animal health products. We have our global footprints across 54 countries in the world. How pharma companies can help create delight at every stage of patient journey. That's my topic of discussion today. So there are three components here. The pharma companies, the pharma companies, and how can we create delight, and the different stages of patient journey. So let's first look at the pharma companies and their traditional marketing pattern. In the whole ecosystem of pharmaceutical, on one side, there is pharmaceutical companies, and on the other side, there is customers. And the key role is played by physicians, patients, and chemists. So this is an inside-out strategy where the promotional approach is actually brand centricity. Now, the pharmaceutical promotional approach may vary from country to country. Like Bangladesh is a branded generic market. From my country perspective, I think almost many of the countries are mainly prioritizing on promoting and selling the brands. That is, it is a brand-centric approach. And I think the same is true for many other countries of this part of the world also. But the companies mainly focus on developing and producing the medicines, and through their field forces, they promote their brands to the physicians. Now the question is, how effective is this traditional pharma promotion with medical reps and detail aids in today's digital world? We have huge number of generic drugs. Many pharma companies are operating today, thousands of brands. Medical reps are getting minimum time, around a minute on an average, or sometimes even less than that. Even sometimes digital contacts like webinars have also no significance. And on the top of all of these, patient's voice is growing. That's why we say, that's why the need for this seminar today, that's why we say there is a need for to think for an improvement in the traditional GTM or go to the market model. My previous speaker, Mr. Sanjeev, he also mentioned, he was also saying not to consider, to think about go to the market or the personal selling model from an effectiveness point of view. That's why we all are thinking that time has come for a change. Now, let's see what is on the other side of brand centricity. How can we actually deliver best patient outcomes? How can we be more patient-centric? So we need to empower the patients. We need to frame the patients at the center of this ecosystem rather than at the end of the stream. So this is an outside-in strategy that prioritizes mainly on offering the most appropriate and valuable solutions. This is how pharma companies and customers interact and transact to continue the proceedings forward. This is the next big differentiator in pharma marketing. And to do this, collaboration is essential between pharma companies, with the healthcare professionals, and with the patients to understand how pharma would come as a partner to be able to deliver best patient outcomes. I can share an example here. I was watching the story of an MNC, and this company is offering innovative products to make patients' lives better since its inception. The company, just a couple of years back, they noticed that delivering innovative treatments and products, this is not enough actually to bring best patient outcomes. So ultimately, what they started collaboration with the healthcare providers and also with the patients to be more patient-centric and to achieve best health outcomes. I know I can understand that even listening from our keynote speaker and also from my previous speaker, that this might sound like a dream in a country like Bangladesh, or to some extent in a country like India, where in our traditional pharma industry, we are mainly going to the physicians first. In fact, the whole healthcare system has been around the physicians. So it would be really interesting to move on to engaging with the disease experience experts, the patients. So we need to involve the healthcare practitioners and the patients in our product planning, in our strategic meetings, and in our tactical meetings. It's like a team where the patient may be considered as the coach of the team, and the strategies can be designed accordingly. So what I'm trying to say is that instead of developing our yearly marketing plan, or while rolling out of our new information or our new brochures inside the closed office room, what we can do, we can engage with patients or patient organizations and healthcare practitioners as well to help us create healthier stories. That's our path in creating delight in the patient's journey. So once we have engaged all the stakeholders, then next, while making our investment decisions, we will see what are the benefits to the patients, what are the benefits to the healthcare provider, and what's the benefit to my company, to my brand. And accordingly, we can apply filter and we can make investment decisions at the different stages of a patient's journey. And to do that, understanding of patient's journey is very important. Patient's journey actually starts before someone becomes ill. So the first stage I will say is wellness and prevention. Many pharma companies today focus on wellness products, the products for preventing the disease. So I will say that their job starts with a healthy person. And then thereafter, with the appearance of symptoms, a patient's journey starts. That follows diagnosis and then treatment and finally recovery. Now, once we know what are the stages of patient's journey, which might be slightly different for different therapeutic areas. And the next piece actually that we want to understand is who are the influencers in course of the patient's journey, because those influencers along the way could come in to help us to understand what things actually we need to deliver to people and to patients. Accordingly, when we the pharma companies can provide solutions at every stage of the patient's journey, it will ultimately support the healthcare providers to deliver better decision, to take better decisions and to deliver better healthcare and to save lives. Now, let me share a few examples of pharma companies in the path of creating delight in different stages of a patient's journey. I want to start from the stage of awareness. In this digital world, technology has opened actually the door to engage with patients in many different ways, like health awareness programs, like disease awareness programs, like even patient awareness programs where patients with chronic diseases can share their life experiences, their insights. And this is how not only other patients, just a couple of minutes back, we heard Dr. Swati was interacting with a patient, and she was also advising that we, the pharma companies, can organize through this digital world, can organize events where patients can also share their experiences and their insights. This is how pharma companies also may get many inputs ultimately to create better health outcomes. And also awareness programs can be organized by advertorials as well. So once the patients are diagnosed with a particular disease or a chronic disease like Parkinson's disease or diabetes or cancer, so the next thing, patients are turning into the internet to support their understanding. And why? Because there are knowledge gaps. And during that time, if we, the pharma companies, if we are unable to address their needs, what will happen ultimately? The patients will go to some other platform and ultimately the patients will learn. So if we can create a navigator where people can go online and ask their questions and get information so that they can go back and they can have necessary discussion with their healthcare providers. So this is a direct engagement between the pharma companies and the patient. And this engagement can be done through healthcare practitioners as well. Like, let me share an example of a patient-centric app for physicians. Again, that can be applied during the stage of a diagnosis of a patient. For example, a newly diagnosed diabetic patient. They have very little information about the disease once they are diagnosed. So, and we know that diabetes it's a chronic disease. It's a progressive disease. So patients must have a thorough understanding, thorough knowledge about the disease, about their medications, and also what are the lifestyle modifications they should bring in their life. So this app can be a free app for the medical practitioners to download, and essentially it can be a teaching tool that might allow the doctors to have the slides and infographics so that they can actually counsel a patient during a visit to the chamber. And a further innovative feature can be added to this app, like this conversation can be recorded and the doctor can email that recording to the patient so that the patient can go back and he or she can listen to it. Further, you can actually see from marketing perspective, we can see how many healthcare practitioners have downloaded the app or from which cities they have downloaded, and accordingly you can strategize your brand investment and planning strategies. Another classic example of putting patient-centered approach into practice I can share is this deep program, that is Disease Experience Expert People program by Novo Nordisk. This program is for the individuals suffering suffering with the chronic diseases like diabetes or obesity. So in this framework, people with chronic diseases are no longer seen as passive recipients of healthcare. Actually, they are disease experience experts. So through sharing their valuable insights, they can help us improve the future of healthcare. Now, next, during this COVID pandemic, when all of us are worried about, especially in Bangladesh, and I know in India also, we all are worried about the sudden peak of COVID cases. We are concerned about the efficacy of the vaccine and what should be the right interval between the 2 doses of vaccines. So once we are concerned, one unique thing has happened, and that is a digital revolution. So that's why even during this extremely difficult time, digital technology has helped us to think about the patients suffering from chronic diseases. What can we do for their lifestyle modification even during this lockdown period? Maybe yoga sessions, or maybe musical sessions with the patients and their families, and this can really be stress relieving during these COVID days. And while a patient is taking a treatment, sometimes elimination of patient worries regarding product authentication is also important. I know that this issue may be applicable for our part of the world, where counterfeit products or lookalike products, these are some issues, and product authentication issues can be addressed with the help of a simple technology. And next, I will say that I know we have a session today on how new product development can address patients' needs. Still, briefly, I want to say that pharma companies who are focused with R&D can even start from there, because product development is also very important to start thinking about the patient first. Instead of viewing the patients as statistics, pharma can track individual patient journeys. Patient actually think about the size or shape of a medication, taste of a medication. They think about the side effects of medication, and the patients want to have a good night's sleep. So the mindset, you want the patient first before you do anything else. And this patient centricity actually starts with patient insights. So I have seen a lecture regarding patient insights, and to explain patient insights in a better way, now I will switch to a bit different topic. How do we learn? We all learn at 3 different levels. All of us learn at 3 different levels: intellectual, related, and experiential. So these 3 levels of learning apply to everything. For example, when we were younger, much younger, we knew about children, right? And we read about children. So this learning about children, it is the intellectual level of learning. And the next level, when you see your friends are getting children, it is getting more real. And it is the second level of experience. That is called related experience. But nothing comes as close as to the third level, when you are actually holding your children, staying up at night. And this learning is the learning with experience. As I said, that these 3 levels of learning can be applied to everything. Like you can read a book about driving a car, that is intellectual learning, and you can actually sit in somebody's car to learn driving, that is related learning, and you can actually drive a car, that is the learning by experience. And it is the same in health and disease. Let me share an example with you. So in this slide, you can see the CT scan film of lungs. You can see the massive ground glass opacities in all the lobes of both lungs, especially in the right lung, completely affected, and left lung, all the lobes are also affected. So maybe this is a case of peak stage of COVID pneumonia. So what I'm trying to say that this patient knows the pain of breathing difficulties. He knows what is air hunger. He knows the importance of lung rehabilitation program. Now, think about this patient example from our pharma industry perspective. The lung disease, so from our pharma industry perspective, the lung disease details, or a product portfolio manager, when he or she is dealing with chronic lung diseases, the lung disease details and the statistics, that is giving him or her the learning from intellectual level, that is intellectual level of learning. And in this case, doctors are at level 2. That means once we from the pharma industry, we are interacting with the doctors, we are getting actually a related level of the learning, because doctors, they didn't experience the disease. But think, if we don't get the patient insight, we are actually missing the most impactful and insightful experience of the disease. So what I'm trying to say with this example, that I'm actually trying to relate with chronic lung disease conditions. So these kind of patients are real patient experience experts, a disease experience expert. They live 24/7 with a condition, and there is nobody in the world who knows better than these persons regarding these diseases. So if your company's marketing team for the respiratory portfolio, if they have close engagement with the patients suffering from chronic lung diseases or patient organizations, so what they can do, they can, while they are strategizing and designing their strategy for any molecule to fight chronic lung diseases like COPD or asthma or pulmonary fibrosis, these patients should be the first point to check on. And that's the way to create happier stories. And that's the actually reach where we all should be. So I'm trying to say that pharma industry should move their focus from modifying disease or controlling disease to quality of life, to living with the disease. Besides doctors, patients also should be our focus. Of course, doctors will be working with us. They are definitely a very important part of our team. But people living with the disease should be focused at the center of the team. And I'm sure within our traditional pharmaceutical company, this patient-centric approach can generate great value for our industry. So I'll give another example, which is at the final stage of a patient's journey, the recovery stage. Or like once a patient, he or she gets recovered. Let's say a blood cancer patient is in the stage of remission. Usually what happens during the course of a cancer treatment, a whole network of people surrounds the patients, and patients are supported. And as soon as the patients turn into remission, the people who were surrounding them may not be available around the patients. So what happens? The patients feel alone. They don't know where to turn. And we may think from our industry perspective that these patients have already been on our drugs, so we are not going to get anything else out of this. But from today's learning and from today's insights and the learning we are getting regarding patient centricity, I think it makes sense that we would invest here. Because along the patient journey, we need to really support the people even when they are in remission. I can say that the motivational stories of conquering cancer will give the feeling to a patient that, yes, I'm a cancer warrior and I'm not alone in my journey forward. So looking at our journey in terms of patient centricity, we may focus mostly, actually nowadays we are focusing when mostly a patient is sick. But through today's learning, we are looking at the entire journey of a patient, knowing that he or she is a person more than a patient. So I have tried to share a few examples with all of you how we pharma companies can create delight at different stages of a patient journey. And I do think that transparency is the area that's most important. Actually, that's how we can understand patients better. We need to listen to the patients. We need to communicate with the patients directly. And by fulfilling the patient's needs and by developing the brands the patients can depend on, ultimately we, the pharma company, we can become a trusted partner in the patient's daily lives. And that trust has to come from your home first. When your child or your grandchild becomes a patient or becomes sick, will you advise your brand? And here, I would like to share a video clip of the founder chairman of SKF. So let's listen from an honoree of the Oslo Business for Peace Award, the founder chairman of SKF.
The product that we produce, would I give it to my child? In my case, would I give it to my grandchild? If you can do that and you do that, then you know you're producing quality. If you are unable to do that and give it to your own family members, then you have no business producing it or selling it to the customers who buy in good faith. So quality, quality, quality should never, never, never be compromised. It's a trust that you are trading in. And that trust has to be always honored.
Awesome. Fantastic message, Dr. Mujahid.
Thank you. Thank you.
Most basic of what we are doing today. Will I give it to a family member of my own before even getting into this business or taking a job of such company? Perfect message, Dr. Mujahid.
Thank you, Dr. Swati. That's what that's what I'm trying to say. So this trust is the ultimate key. And you cannot do anything without the trust. And I think our keynote speaker, Jill, has also mentioned that without trust, we cannot be engaged. Patients want an open, transparent relationship, and that's not for a single point of time. That trusted relationship has to be sustained for a longer period of time. They want to be treated with due respect and compassion, just as we would like to be treated if we were patients. And ultimately, it's about improving the patient experience and outcome. So the summary of my topic is always to begin with the patient, not the solution. What are the patient's needs? And what are the patient's needs we are actually trying to address? And once we understand the need, once we can create right solutions to the patients or to the healthcare professionals, that should be our way forward. Actually, in our part of the world, we have also learned from the previous two speakers, this path of creating delight in patient's journey is actually a journey. So from some point, we'll have to start. And I really hope that gradually we'll get there. Let us not continue what we are always doing at this moment. And we need to take a stop, and we need to measure that the impact that is meaningful to thousands or millions of patients. And before I conclude, I also want to share a comment from, it is such a coincidence that our keynote speaker, she mentioned about a comment, about a quote, and our next speaker, Mr. Sanjeev, he also mentioned about a quote that medicine is for the people, it is not for the profit. So I'm also sharing a story from my organization, from SK Pharmaceuticals, which is exactly focusing the same actually concept that medicine actually is for the people. So what happened during the darkest era of COVID pandemic, the CEO of SKF, she encouraged our team, the entire SKF team, that we would try our best to manufacture any drugs that emerge to fight COVID-19. You may be aware that Bangladesh is an LDC country, and as an LDC country, we are allowed to manufacture and produce any patented drug as per WTO's TRIPS agreement. So based on our continued research and our discussion with the medical scientists, the SKF team shortlisted few molecules, including remdesivir. And on 8th May 2020, last year on 8th May, SKF officially announced the completion of all the manufacturing steps of remdesivir injection, the brand Remivir, as the first ever remdesivir generic in the world, just 1 week after remdesivir got emergency use authorization for the treatment of COVID patients.
Great.
So the whole motto of the company was to serve the humanity, and not once we thought about profitability. The CEO even said that if remdesivir would not get regulatory approval, we would write off the entire development expenses. Ultimately, this single approach of supporting the thousands of COVID patients redefined the image of SKF not only in Bangladesh but also in a global scale. Most importantly, we could support, thank you, sir, we could support thousands of patients across 32 countries in the world during this darkest time of the century. And once we could win the hearts of people, once we could manage to create delight in the path of patient's journey, business ultimately follows. And let us put our efforts to make the industry more patient-centric. It will ultimately improve our company reputation, your brand reputation, our brand reputation, and ultimately business. So maybe you cannot change the entire company today, but your little initiatives can shake things up. I know we have many future industry leaders from South Asian and Southeast Asia, many Southeast Asian countries with us today. For you, I have a very simple message to share. Put your personal signature, your fingerprint in your job, so that once you are done with your career, you can look back and maybe you can tell your grandchildren that how you have personally changed the world. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Mujahid, for a message which resonates and which will keep resonating even after the summit is over. This was a very wonderful message. You also gave us a theory, example of how in acute segment a company did patient centricity. You launched the generic remdesivir. That is again an activity which counts related to patient centricity. So thank you so much, Dr. Mujahid.
Thank you.
We have comments coming up. Wonderful message, sir. We need remdesivir in India. Oh my God. Okay. Let me, if any relevant question is there, I'll take up.
Yeah, the one I would like to make one small statement, and one powerful statement which Dr. Mujahid has made. Patient should be first treated as a person, a human being. I find that statement to be, a very, very, very powerful statement. And this is what all the pharma marketers should keep in mind. Treat the patient first. The doctors, why only pharma companies? Treat the patient first as a human being and a person. Thank you so much, Dr. Mujahid.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. It's an honor.
It's about human centricity first, and then we can call anyone patient. So a lot of congratulations and excellent questions. A question, how do we increase? Okay, how would we be able to tackle these real world concerns from HCPs? Okay, the question, I'll take up the single question. So the idea of patient education app provided to doctor is great idea, but would a HCP believe, I'm missing the question, give me a moment.
Would the HCP believe app coming from a pharma company?
Yeah, actually,
yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Swati.
Yeah, this was the question. So the idea of patient education app provided to doctor is great idea, but would a HCP believe or trust in the app provided by a pharma company?
So I think again, it's a matter of trust. It is our responsibility to gain the trust from the HCPs, because once the healthcare practitioner or the healthcare provider, once he or she is dealing with particularly the chronic diseases, so the doctor knows that once he actually sees or he gives visit to a patient, that is not the end of the story. It is not like that, okay, once the patient finishes the visit and he says goodbye to the patient, that's not the end of the story, because the patients who are living with chronic diseases, once he or she is at his or her home, they are living with the disease conditions. So if we from pharma companies, if we can provide a solution to the patient, to the doctor, that he can remain engaged with the patient, he can give the necessary knowledge regarding the disease, necessary knowledge regarding the medication, even the necessary knowledge regarding the lifestyle modifications, I think the doctor will ultimately remain thankful to the pharma companies. And it's a process of engagement among pharma companies, patients, and the doctors.
Right, so not to overdo it, but you have to do it. That is what I get. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Mujahid, for your
One
wonderful
more question is
presentation.
from Prashant Menon sir has posted one question. Can you take
Okay, please, Satish, if you can read the question.
Question is, as the head of the company, how much percentage of promo would you find is important to invest in patient-related activities in today's context?
I will give the answer in a way that, as I mentioned, that I'll be very honest with you. I'll be very honest with this question. I had a detailed discussion with Vivek sir regarding this issue. So patient centricity, even I'm also learning from today's discussion. It's a process. It's a journey. I believe it's not only in Bangladesh, it's applicable even to some extent in India as well. We are still in the learning phase. So I will not mention any particular percentage of my promo budget. What I will say that it's a journey. Let us start from some point and gradually, ultimately, we'll be able to reach the hearts of thousands and millions of patients.
Beautiful.
Thank you, sir.
Beautiful
Thank you,
response. Beautiful response.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Mujahid. And we are now moving to the next speaker. We are really indebted to you for a wonderful, motivating presentation, giving us ideas and the patient journey to touching upon that.
Thank you.